Chapter 1104, called Thank You Daddy, starts off with that insane punch we saw from the last chapter, heading straight towards Saturn. His punch full of his feelings of his family, hatred towards Saturn, and his love towards Ginny and Bonnie. Bonnie is inconsolable at this time, and Saturn is left questioning Vega Punk why Kuma is here and how can he be alive since he made use of that contingency plan. When the revolutionaries took him in, he triggered the self-destruct mechanism, and Vega Punk is just left stunned, and the next series of panels are something so special. The revenge we've finally been waiting for, and in Oda's best fashion, Kuma brings his fist flying down, smashing directly into Saturn's face in this incredible double-page spread. Blood splattering, Saturn goes flying back directly into the ground, creating a wave of destruction that breaks apart the buildings behind them. Saturn, now a bloody mess on the ground, looks up and the buildings come crumbling down on top of him, creating another huge explosion that can be seen by the Marines on the far side of the island. They question if Kuma did that, and the higher ranked Marines closest to them stutter in surprise at the fact that Kuma just punched one of the 5 elders. But before we get into the rest of the chapter, if you're enjoying this video, please like and subscribe, it really helps my small channel grow. Also, I've made a Patreon and it's in the description below, support me if you'd like. Kuma stands there breathing heavily, while the Marines gather to help Saint Saturn, shouting that this is an unprecedented event. The Straw Hats and Satellites jump into action to save Bonnie and get her to escape, and the main Vega Punk sits there in a daze. The truth is that he never installed a self-destruct system. He couldn't bring himself to do it, turning him into a bomb for the world government's advantage. As Kuma reaches for Bonnie and picks her up into his arms, we hear Vega Punk's continued thoughts. He did keep his word in a way, just used a different kind of failsafe, which Saturn himself activated. Instead of blowing up, it shut down his body, making him incapable of receiving any orders, but would also turn him into a vegetable. Which leads Vega Punk to still be confused at how he reached them and knew how to save Bonnie. He then thinks back on the Buccaneer skill, recalling they have a special characteristic beyond just their strong bodies. But before we find out, Kizaru bows his head and comments that it's now over, and Sentomaru thinks of Kuma. The Marines scramble around, realizing that Luffy has disappeared, and start whispering to each other. Bonnie reaches for Kuma's face and thanks him for everything. She then states she saw his memories, and her mother seemed like an amazing woman, and she saw all the letters he wrote. He doesn't care if he's called a tyrant, because she knows how kind he is. To her, he's the coolest person in the world, and she'll never forget that. However, all of a sudden the buildings rupture and Saturn screams. He crawls from the rubble facing Kuma and Bonnie, and covered in blood and his arm destroyed, he shouts, questioning Vega Punk if this was his doing. Vega Punk then meekly states it's fair to say he is responsible, but if one considers the romantic element, you could chalk it up to the power of love. Saturn, however, is not amused, aiming to exterminate all of them. He completely regenerates, and Sanji is bewildered at this. Saturn goes in for another strike with his foot, but Sanji is well prepared and jumps in, kicking away Saturn's leg and hilariously calling him a dirty old spider. Frankie as well prepares a beam, stating that they all owe Kuma a huge debt as well. Kizaru compliments their growth and stands up while Frankie fires his radical beam that pierces straight through Saturn. Frankie's stocks are certainly up today, guys. But suddenly Kizaru appears behind Frankie and says he's going to put their growth to the test. And Sanji shouts for Frankie, but Kizaru kicks him far away, and Saturn finishes healing from the attack. Bonnie calls for Vega Punk to help Kuma, and Atlas picks him up, ready to head to their meeting point in the Labostratum. Kizaru says it's about time they wrap this up since there are now too many players on the board with Kuma there. Vega Punk is not pleased, calling him a sad, sad man, and Kizaru, potentially tearing up at the events that are taking place, says he should have brought a darker pair of sunglasses. Suddenly, an announcement rings throughout the island. A buster call has been authorized and these ships ready themselves to take aim and obliterate the island. Saturn, even more furious than when he was before, reflects on these situations. From his perspective, there's a traitorous scientist, a survivor of an extinct bloodline, and a pirate who awakened the power of a god, all on one island, and he aims to destroy them all. And the chapter ends there with a cliffhanger that could bring back Queen Elizabeth herself.
The One Piece is real.
This chapter is another 10 out of 10. I was sobbing at Kuma finally delivering that well-deserved punch and hitting Saturn so hard it destroyed his arm and the buildings around them. And I'm so happy that Kuma finally got to pick up Bonnie and hug her again, even though he's practically just a husk. I also wonder where Luffy's gone. He might be watching somewhere from a distance, healing up, and then will be ready to take action. He might be the last line of defense, taking on both Kizaru and Saturn in order to let everyone get to the Labo Stratum safely and escape the island before it gets destroyed. And speaking of Kizaru, I know he's sort of turned back around and fought the Straw Hat, but I definitely think he's so close to turning. Like the truth about Bonnie's age, there have just been so many hints that he's tired and is finding it more and more difficult to fight his old friends. I also wonder if that giant robot we saw underneath the island will appear and help Luffy fight or help everyone escape. It's been a while since we've seen it, and it could replace the Vega Punk's giant robot that was destroyed, but we will have to wait and see. It's now coming to the end of the video, and I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. I'm so happy you stopped by. My channel is steadily growing and I'm amazed at the support I'm getting, and I also have a Patreon now, so feel free to support me however you like. The link will be in the description, and I will shout out names at the end of each video. Thank you again, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.